So in the last chapter, chapter 6, we were looking at durable goods in terms of buying automobiles and other durable goods such as appliances, and kind of holds true for not just cars but also for appliances, for for large furniture purchases, and so on and so forth. So in chapter 7, we're looking at the largest asset oftentimes that people have so far as their net worth is concerned. Is there the largest thing that you typically have single purchase would be your house. And in chapter 7, we're looking at selecting and financing housing. So onward we go. We assess the costs and benefits of renting versus the home buying, if you will. Implementing the home buying process, determining the costs associated with purchasing a home, developing a strategy for selling a home. So onward we go. So first we're looking at, again, assess rather the costs and benefits of renting. So evaluating renting and buying alternatives. In many ways they're the same, meaning that you're paying for the cost of shelter, of some place to live, right? Whether you're talking about buying a home or renting, either way, you're really, that's your first thing, is you're trying to meet that requirement, what you need for shelter, that need that you have. At any rate, so how you spend your time and your money, how you spend your time and money. Every buying decision equals lifestyle statement, what it is that you're trying to achieve. Personal preferences versus financial factors. Traditional financing guidelines, spending no more than 25 to 30% of your take-home pay on housing, or no more than 2.5 times your annual income. At any rate, you have the idea. That's kind of the idea. So renting versus buying housing, choice should be based on lifestyle, again, financial factors, mobility versus permanence. Renting equals less costly in the short run. Home ownership, long-term financial advantage, and we'll walk through what we mean by this. So that renting versus buying, leasing versus buying a vehicle on credit, and so on and so forth. Similar rationale that we're looking at. Advantages and disadvantages of renting. Advantages: it's easy to move, pick up and move. It's a pain, but it's easier to pick up and move. Fewer responsibilities for maintenance, hopefully. Minimal financial commitment. Whether we're talking about 1-year lease or month to month, you're not stuck in a situation where you've got a 30-year mortgage, for example, right? Disadvantage to renting is that there's no tax benefit, and limitations regarding remodeling, and you can't go and you rent an apartment. What's the point in going and remodeling for the landlord? Restrictions regarding pets, etc. A lot of restrictive. There's a lot of restrictions that are associated with renting. Not to say that there aren't with buying, in terms of the various covenants that you have in terms of neighbors and homeowners associations, and so on and so forth. But buying advantages are pride of ownership. You're buying it. You don't own it completely, but you're buying it. If you have a mortgage and what you do own, you have pride in. So whenever you own something, hopefully you have some pride in that. Financial benefits would come your way in terms of the house, the home increases in value, hopefully, and affords you some flexibility in terms of your lifestyle, in terms of that if you want to, you can take off for a month or 2 months and not worry about it. I guess with renting you could do similar things, but it affords you a little more flexibility, you might say, than renting would. Your landlord can change their mind and say they don't want to rent to you anymore because they're going to turn this into a condo, so they don't re-up your lease or whatnot. Just different things like that. The disadvantages to buying a home. include the financial commitment associated with that. It's a long-term proposition. Higher living expenses than renting for sure, at least up front. And you're limited so far as mobility is concerned because you are stuck with the home in which you're living, right? Not a bad thing necessarily, but you get the idea. So housing rental activities. First is we're looking at the search, as it is with any kind of a purchase or any kind of a lease or buy of a vehicle, if you will. Search, select an area and rental amount, compare cost and facilities of comparable units, and talk to current and past residents. Get as much information as you can up front before signing the lease. Verify the lease starting date, and so on and so forth. And you should definitely, if not having to go to a lawyer, for a ton of stuff, you could just have them look over it, and hopefully they'll charge you $50 or something to kind of review your lease agreement. And I say $50 is probably wishful thinking, but rather than being stuck in a situation where you have a bad agreement, a bad rental agreement, you're probably better off spending whatever the amount is on an attorney. And so far as actual living in the rental property, treat it as your own, hopefully, meaning take care of it and try to limit the amount of issues that come up, that you're causing, whether we're talking about with pets and, sticking with the rules of the road, so to speak, within the framework of the apartment itself, and keeping up on things and letting management know if you need things. And again, this is all dependent upon the rental unit itself, but along those lines. And lastly, at the end of your lease, make sure you leave the apartment clean. Tell the landlord where to send your security deposit. This is something that I learned as well from past experience, but also a friend of mine told me this, and this was not all that long ago. What she did was she took pictures, photographs of the apartment, made sure that they were time, date stamped, and so on and so forth, and that she was leaving a clean apartment. And when they did not want to give her back her security deposit because the apartment wasn't clean, she had those photographs with the time, date stamp on them to prove that she did have a clean apartment. So there are things like that happen all the time. Just due diligence, rental activity, selecting a rental unit. Again, apartment or a house, whatever it is you're choosing to rent. Advantages of the renting: you're easier to move to and from. Disadvantage, again, there's no tax benefit associated with the interest that you're paying. Not that you're paying the interest, but think about it this way: if you're renting a place, you're making sure that you're paying whoever the landlord is, who owns the apartments, whatever their arrangement is, that you're covering their cost, meaning you're paying for their taxes and you're paying for their interest and so on and so forth. So keeping that in mind, you're going to be paying a premium for this. So it's a downside, but it's also, it affords you some flexibility. Back to what we said about easier to move. Selecting an apartment, same thing as with buying a home, is that you're looking at all these things, the location. How far are you from the schools, for your kids, churches, synagogues, etc., and all the other things, how accessible to public transportation, shopping, recreation, all the things that go along with it. There's always this trade-off, of course, for these things, but all things to consider, to keep in mind, and to do as much as you can up front to make sure that you're covering as much ground as you possibly can, because no matter what the situation is, this always happens, and that is that you always run into situations where after the fact, after you buy something happens that we're not taking into account. So legal details of the lease, again, you want to make sure you run this through an attorney, just because. It has to have the description, address of the property, the name, the address of the owner or the landlord, lessor, the name of the tenant, the lessee, you, who's actually paying the lease, the lessee, the effective date, and the length of the lease. How long is this? When does it go into effect? Is it the first of the month, etc.? the terms of the lease, the amount that when the rent is due, when the lease expires, the amount of the security deposit, the terms of the security deposit, what it is you have to do to get back your security deposit. Typically, a security deposit is about the same as your first month rent, or at least that's what it used to be. Legal details of a lease, date, amount of late rent payments, what are the penalties involved with paying your rent late, for example. List of included utilities and appliances, etc. Do you have a furnished apartment, or do you not have a furnished apartment? Do utilities, is your electric included, your gas included, is your water included? If not, these are things that you've got to arrange for yourself. Restrictions on certain activities. You can't have loud music playing after 9 o'clock at night. Not to say that you should be playing loud music anytime, but you get the idea. The right to sublet the unit transfer clause, meaning that do you have, say for example, you have an apartment and you're stuck with a lease for a year, and your job changes and you've got to leave the area, and you're stuck paying that lease till that year is up. So what you could do, or what you would like to do, is to rent that apartment out to move to someone else. Conditions under which the landlord may enter the rental unit. They can't just come and go as they please. There have to be specific guidelines for that. Cost of renting the security deposit, again, usually 1 month's rent, held against damages to the property, returned at the end of the lease if the unit is undamaged. Any deductions must be documented. This is again where I was saying before about take pictures. Utilities not covered. So these are things, again, you have to get the utilities turned on, the electric, the gas, and what have you. Renter's insurance, this is something that is usually fairly inexpensive, but it's something important. It's important to have renter's insurance in the event that something happens. Someone breaks in, there's water damage, and it ruins some of your property. It's best to have that stuff covered, even though it would probably be covered under the rental agreement, or the insurance of the the umbrella insurance, just the same, from the landlord, etc. It's probably good just to have just a little bit of this rental insurance. It would be in your best interest to do that. Implement the home buying process. So similar to the rental process, do your work up front. Determine home ownership needs, evaluate owning your own place of residence, assess types of housing units, calculate the amount that you can actually afford. Lots of stuff out there to do that, based on those ratios that we had mentioned before. Find and evaluate the property, location. Consider using a real estate agent, maybe for sale by owner. If you find a place that's for sale by owner, you don't have to pay your agent's fee, which is typically, I think it's 3% for the buyer, 3% for the seller. So meaning that you would be on the hook for 3% of the sale price for a real estate agent. But this is all part of that equation so far as home buying is concerned, is that you have to go through all these steps. And it's probably best to have a professional that's acting in your best interest, if you will. Pricing the property, determine appropriate market price, negotiate an agreement price. All these things are negotiable. Keeping this in mind, that's why you want to make sure you have inspections, and a thorough inspection on whether checking the roof and checking on it's typically cost a few $100, $500 maybe even for an inspection, but it'll save you, because if the inspector finds something wrong that has to be fixed or should be fixed, you would let the people know that you want to purchase the house from, saying, I'm sorry, but the roof is too old, it has to be replaced before I will purchase this home. Obtain financing, determine amount of down payment, investigate the rates. All these things are work up front to do, to figure out the best rates and shop around. Finally, the closing on the home, close the purchase transaction, arrange closing date, obtain funds and documents for closing, request clarification of unclear aspects of the transaction. The pages involved in the closing documents are probably up to 100 now. Take your time and kind of go through them, or at least prepare yourself by looking online what to expect, what to watch out for. Very important. Determining home ownership needs. We've already been through this before, but figuring out what it is that you're actually looking for. You're looking for, are you looking to buy $1 million home? You know that there are $1 million homes out there for sure. Can you afford $1 million home? No, maybe not. If you can, well, then you're all set, but you get the idea. You have to kind of think about these things rationally. What makes the most sense? You want to get the most for your money, but you don't want to buy too much house. You'll get yourself into trouble with that. The financial benefits to home ownership, deduct property taxes and mortgage interest. And there is potential increase, of course, in the value of your home going forward. And when you're paying for your home over the course of a 30-year mortgage, you're buying into that home. You're buying an equity stake in that home. So you put 20% down, maybe. After 10 years, you probably own another 10, 15%. So you're up to 25% ownership in that home after at the end of 10 years. So that's that equity stake. You're building equity in the home. Lifestyle flexibility, you can express your individuality. If you want to paint the door purple, you can paint your front door purple unless there's something against that within the homeowners association. But again, this is all to be determined. Drawbacks of home ownership, financial uncertainty, homes can drop in value. It's tough oftentimes to get a mortgage. It's hard to have the credit extended so that you can purchase that dream home that you're looking for. Obtaining the money, the number one thing on the list is obtaining the money for down payment. That's the most difficult thing for most people, is having enough money, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, is having enough money to make that down payment. Your limited mobility, this goes to liquidity. Your home, yes, you can sell your home, but you're not going to sell it overnight. Even if someone buys it the next day, puts in an offer and you accept it, and vice versa, it still takes a month or two for the transaction to occur. It takes time. Higher living cost, maintenance, repainting, repairs, home improvements. And if your home is going up in value, that's a great thing. The downside is that also means that your real estate taxes, your property taxes will be going up in all likelihood as well. Home buying activities, types of housing available: single family dwellings, multi-unit dwellings, duplexes, 2 homes, townhouses, 2, 4, 6 units, condominiums, individual ownership of a unit in a building. Condominium is not necessarily a type of a building structure. It's condominium is a form of home ownership within that building structure itself. Townhouses and condominiums they're pretty much the same, but as it says, townhouses are typically fewer number of units within the larger building, whereas condominiums can be hundreds of units. Anyway, it's in many ways it's a distinction without a difference, but you get the idea. Single home dwelling versus multi-unit dwelling. Cooperative housing, where you have ownership, everything's the same. You have ownership or for the most part, you have ownership in the overall building. So there may be 100 units, so you have 1 unit, you have 1% ownership stake in that cooperative, in that entire unit. Manufactured homes, very common, and increasingly modular homes, buildings are coming into mode where you have large sections of even homes that are built, stick homes that are built from the ground up are modular in terms of many of the components are coming prefabricated. Home buying activities, also types of housing available would be mobile homes. Often they're manufactured homes, of course, that are in trailer parks and so on and so forth. Same basic features as conventional They tend to depreciate rather than appreciate in value. Safety is debated, meaning that some are safe, some not so safe. At any rate, it's another option. Building a custom home, does the contractor have needed experience? It's a whole deal, whole group of issues that come with this. Does contractor have a good working relationship with the architect, suppliers, electricians, all the general contractor? Does he or she have a good working relationship with all the individual contractors and also these other folks, that the carpenters that are working for those individual? It just goes on and on and on the list. A lot goes into building a home, putting a home up, and it's an interesting experience building a custom home. Not that I have. I should say I did build one home that was a custom home, but it wasn't really a custom home. It was built in a sub with other homes, but it was a development, and it was interesting. I'll leave it at that. Building a custom home, what assurance do you have about the quality? What are the payment arrangements? What delays will be considered legitimate? Is the contractor licensed and insured? Are there complaints about the contractor? So you have to do, again, all of your due diligence. You've got to do all your homework up front, or as much as you possibly can. Should be provided with a schedule of work and cost estimates and some guarantees on this, and also the payment schedule, or actually paying the contractor to do this work. They're called construction loans or bridge loans. But at any rate, home buying activities determine what you can afford. Consider both price and quality. Look at your income, your current living expenses, and how much you have for a down payment. How much you actually have that you can beg, borrow, or steal to get that 20% down. It's very important. A lot of people don't have 20% down, and you can certainly get a home with less than 20% down. But yeah, you want to go through the pre-qualification process, and that's very, very important. The objective then, of course, is to purchase what you can afford, because even though these are big decisions, you can always move up if you want a bigger, better home, so on and so forth. Feel free, as I say here, to buy a fixer-upper at a lower price if you have the time, skills, and money to fix it up, or if you have the inclination to do so, meaning you may not have the skill set to do this, but you may have a friend or a family member that would be willing to help you do a lot of these tasks that would be involved. Find and evaluate a home. Step 2, select a location. Again, it's location, location, location. Services of the real estate agent will show you homes that meet your needs, present your offer, negotiate price, represent you at closing. Commission is paid by seller. Built into price, seller's agent, dual agent, or buyer's agent. These are all things that you have to consider, like what is exactly going on with whose interest is that real estate agent working for? Are they working for you, or are they working for the seller, if you will? Finding and evaluating, continue the home inspection, critically important. Conduct a home inspection or hire an inspector. Mortgage companies will require an appraisal, so beyond just the appraisal, you want to get an inspector to come in and take a look at this piece of property that you're seeking to purchase. Conducting the home inspection, they go through all of the hardware, of course, throughout the building, making sure that the windows are sealed and the electrical stuff is in good working order, that your washer and it's not washer, but your water heater, your furnace, your air conditioning is up to snuff, and how much, if it's going to need to be replaced, when would it need to be replaced, or if the roof is in good order, the windows are good, all these things that they go through. Inspecting in the attic, for example. All these things are part of this inspection. It's a very detailed thing that they go through. And what they'll provide you is with a report that you can go forward with your real estate agent and say, these things have to be addressed, these issues have to be addressed. Price the property, determine the home price affected by selling prices in the area, current demand for housing, all these things are included. How eager is the owner to sell? Maybe they have another home that they purchased. How eager are they to do this? And features and conditions of the home. Maybe an old home. Maybe a lot of a lot to update, if you will. New kitchens and all these things. These are all things to consider, and whether or not you can do these things tomorrow, purchase a home, so on and so forth. These are things to think about kind of going forward. Again, so far as pricing the property, negotiating that purchase price. Counter offers are common, meaning someone may come in and say, well, you want to buy it for X amount. We are only willing to sell it for X plus $5,000, for example. Do you agree to those terms or not? And all the terms. This is when the negotiation begins, goes back and forth. Obtaining the financing for this is, again, if you can't get 20% down, you pay what is called PMI. And the PMI is a mortgage insurance, and it's what that means is that once you get past automatic PMI termination is when equity reaches 22%. So you're paying a premium for this. So this increases your APR or your annual percentage rate. Going forward. So yes, you can buy a home with less than 20% down, but if it's less than 20% down, you have to pay what are called points. And we can walk through that, but the idea is that you're penalized if you don't pay the 20% down. Long-term loans on a specific piece of property, usually 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30 years. Typically, we're saying 10, 15, 30 years are typical. 3 main phases: complete the application, meet with a lender to provide evidence of qualification. This is when you have to reveal all of your sources of income and so on and so forth, and the lender obtains your credit report and verifies the application. Mortgage is approved or denied. The approval locks the rate for 60 to 90 days. So this is, again, a long-term proposition in order to close on a home. Qualifying for that mortgage includes income, debt, credit history, down payment amount, length of the loan, current mortgage rates, points. Again, that's the prepaid interest on as a percent of loan amount. Each point, 1% of the loan amount. Premium paid to obtain a lower mortgage rate. How much you're paying in to reduce your mortgage from your rate from 5% down to 4%, etc. The mortgage itself, loan for which you qualify, will be greater when rates are low. Using that exhibit is to calculate the mortgage amount you would most likely be able to afford. And you can walk through this process, calculating your monthly principal and interest payment. It's a pretty straightforward calculation. But these are all things to walk through in order to figure out how much it is that you would be able to afford. And using, again, the formula on the left, the financial calculator, and also your Excel spreadsheet, you can plug these details in as well. And it kind of gets to the number that you want. If you can afford, again, the monthly payment being $1,485 a month on a $223,000 mortgage, that's what you can pay, and that's if it fits within the criteria of your income, then all's ready to go. So again, suppose your gross income is $52,000, you get $24,000 to put down on the house. Your lender allows 38% of monthly gross payment income for the PITI, and you have other debt payments of $540 per month, and you expect monthly property taxes and insurance to be about $500, $480 a month. You get a 30-year mortgage with an interest rate of 4.5. You do not want to pay a PMI, so you would like to finance 80% of the house. What is the affordable home purchase price? Here we go. Walking through the process, roughly speaking, $155,000. That's how much home that you could afford putting 20% down, walking through this process. Okay. Home buying activities, types of mortgages: fixed rate mortgages, fixed payment, government guaranteed loans, VA. If you're a veteran, FHA. You have a lower down payment than a conventional loan without having to pay the PMI that the mortgage insurance. Adjustable rate mortgages are flexible, and they're based on inflation typically, based on some certain rate that's out there, some certain rate that you are that you're tracking to. And adjustable rate mortgages can be dangerous. You're basically, again, you're sharing the risk associated with inflation with the lender. Lender and buyer are sharing the risk. Interest-only mortgage, that's our balloon payments, as we're saying here. What that means is that you're paying just the interest on that mortgage for a set number of years, and thereafter you start to pay more, where you're starting to pay not just the interest but also the principal. Again, that's an interest-only mortgage. Other financing options: buy down, interest rate subsidy, reduces payment during the first few years. Again, second mortgage, you have a home equity loan. A home is using the home itself as collateral. Interest may be tax deductible. Reverse mortgages, where home equity conversion mortgage, provides homeowners of 62 years plus with tax-free income based on home equity. Refinancing, considering cost of refinancing in your decision making extra payments reduces the payoff time and interest paid. Home buying activities, step 5, close the actual purchase transaction. You make arrangements for a walkthrough, last-minute items for negotiation, closing, meeting including buyer, seller, lender, document signing, last-minute detail, settle, closing costs, settlement costs. Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, requires buyers to be given closing cost estimates before closing, so you know what you're walking into. There are no surprises on day of closing. Closing costs include title insurance, search fees, attorneys, appraisers fees, property survey, pest inspection. All depends upon the requirements of the municipality. Transfer taxes, credit report, lender's origination fee, escrow account for tax and insurance reserve, prepaid interest. So again, the escrow, what that means is that you're prepaying your taxes and your insurance for, say, a year ahead. So you're paying that up front. Prepaid interest, the real estate broker's commission, all these things flow into this. And breakout title insurance, title company defines the boundaries of your property, and they do the search on this, and they make sure that they provide that insurance that you do in fact own this piece of property, and that's backed up by the deed, which is a document that transfers ownership from the current owner to the next owner. The warranty deed guarantees that the title is good. Seller is a true owner with right to sell the property, no outstanding claims against that title. Escrow account, again, is money that's set up to make sure that there's payment out there for taxes that are owed and taxes going forward, and also the insurance going forward for a set period of time, typically a year. Preparing your home for selling a home, you want to make sure you repair what you can. Staging it is the expression where you have the lights on, open draperies, you bake bread or make coffee for a welcoming smell. Ideas from HGTV, interesting, isn't it? Design to sell, get it sold, so on and so forth. The idea is that you want to do as much as you possibly can to make your house look as nice as you can possibly make it. You're being realistic, but you still want to best foot forward and all that stuff, right? So determining the selling price, the appraisal is done, estimate of current value, for sale by owner using a lawyer or a title company, time consuming for seller, but you're reducing the costs associated with without having a real estate agent. So listing with the real estate agent, consider agent's knowledge of the community and various services and marketing efforts and their desire or ability to screen potential buyers. Again, walking through the summary, it's all about what? It's all about being able to find an affordable home at a reasonable price, whether you're talking about renting or buying, doing as much homework up front as you possibly can, so that you're prepared to walk in the door to negotiate, to find the place again that you want to purchase, and so on and so forth. And that is a wrap for home rentals and buying. Okay.